8 people have now been confirmed dead, while 38 others are still unaccounted for after a multi-story building collapsed in George on Monday. Emergency crews are racing against time as rescue operations enter a 4th day at the building collapse site on Victoria Street.
While a multidisciplinary rescue team of more than 200 emergency services are on the scene. Let's now bring in Newzroom Afrika's Sipha Kema live from the site of that building. Sipha, good morning once again. It's been 4 days now since that building collapsed, and yesterday when you were speaking to the MEC Bradal, he spoke about at some point it will move from a search and rescue to a search and recovery. Where are we now at this stage?
Well, if you remember, Aldrin, from the briefing that took place on Monday, led by the Western Cape provincial team, we were informed that they would be giving the 3 days, which is the 72 hours, which is an international standard day of actually, time frame rather, of actually, giving time for the process, the rescue and recovery process. Rescue mission, that is search and rescue mission that is here. But what you're seeing currently at this point, you're seeing these heavy-duty machinery, which we have seen this morning, starting with the demolition process, and of course digging up parts of those slabs and those concrete that have now been reduced to further rubble. As you know, that the top layer, when we saw earlier on, it was somewhat still intact, although it was concaved in the middle. But now we've seen on the other side, it's just unfortunate that the machinery is in front of us. Just on the other side, we've seen that now that area that was somewhat still intact has now been reduced into some form of rubble. And also, just to give you an update there, Aldrin, on the numbers currently where we are. So 8 have been confirmed as deceased. As we know that just last night, one of those was one of the deceased was actually pulled from the rubble, but since then they have not been able to recover or any bodies or any survivors as of yet. But we have seen the machinery, the machines actually getting in there and start working. Now, this decision came, or rather was announced by Anton Bradal from the Western Cape government, the MEC of local government, and he told us that, they came to this decision because they looked at the risk factor for the rescue teams that are on site assisting, as well as those that have come to volunteer with their time. We were informed by the engineer that they've, the independent engineer who's serving as a consultant with the rescue team, telling us that currently this building is actually shifting and it's not safe for the rescue teams to be on there at all hours. So they've taken the decision now to pull the team sometimes they will be pulling the teams away, and the machines will be doing the rest of the work. Where they started, we saw them starting with the demolition process yesterday afternoon, just after 3 p.m. And they were telling us that not to be alarmed when we start seeing these machines starting to get on top of that construction site. As remember, the fear was that they didn't want to further shake what was remaining of the site so that it does not cause further damage. But now they have opted to send in the machines and start with the demolition process. And we know that, Aldrin, from 2 p.m. today, it will mark that the 72 hours that everyone has been counting down to. And then perhaps we might receive a briefing to hear where the teams will be taking the process from there.
Yeah, quite an onerous task that they're faced there with, also considering that we're speaking here about the 5 levels, including a basement, and we understand that there were people in the basement as well. But has anyone said that they've heard any sign of life as yet since yesterday?
Well, during the briefing, that was one of the questions that I had actually asked Mr. Anton Bradal, and they had actually informed us that as of yesterday, they have not received any or gotten any sounds or responses from those that are still trapped underneath the rubble. But also, I mean, just before the briefing, or just hours actually before the briefing, Aldrin, there was an assumption that they heard a sound coming from this my right side of the building, but it had turned out when they brought out the cameras, motion detectors, as well as the sound equipment and the thermal drone, it was then able to verify that no, there was no one at that area. And that was the last alert that they had received for the day. And then that is when an announcement was made later on at 3 p.m. At the briefing.
Sipha, Kema, thank you so much for your time. We'll continue with the coverage, of course, of the building collapse a bit later on at around 7:15. And Naledi will be in conversation with Roy Mnisi, who's the Master Builders South Africa. Who's from the Master Builders South Africa, to have a conversation also about what's happening in the construction sector.